Welcome everyone, and I hope you're going to enjoy this episode of Meet the Players. This is a Meet the Players with Rasmus, whom you have probably heard in a number of our different campaigns here on CharismaToAC by now. I'll say in advance, be prepared for a slight amount of weirdness to arise, because it's sort of strange to sit here and do a recorded interview with someone who's sitting literally 8 feet away from you, seeing as he and I are roomies. But nonetheless, we shall mosey on, soldier forward, and so on, and get started with the questions. And well, we'll start from the top. Your name in full, if you wish to share it.
Well, first let me say, Joan, I'm very happy to join you here today. It's not often I get the opportunity. I'll leave out my middle name, but my name is Rasmus Jensen.
All right. And what is your age at present?
I'm 26 years old.
Oh dear. Imagine being so young again. And what do you do with your life?
I'm currently a student. What I do with my life is try to enjoy it, I suppose.
Very funny. You're so basically, now that you say you're a student, what kind of education is that? What are you working towards, so to say? And if you already have any education behind you, what might that be?
I'll start from the beginning then. I have the Danish folkeskole, which would be primary and secondary school rolled together, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
And then the standard gymnasium, which would be high school.
Yep.
Then I have 2 years of uni, which I dropped out from. And I'm currently studying to become a teacher. Although I do plan on taking a master's in pedagogical psychology afterwards.
Yes. Good. And then, as I mentioned, you have taken part in a number of CharismaToAC campaigns and still do. So, which ones?
I think all of them.
Yeah, I believe so. At the moment, we're uploading Hereticus, A Song of Tara, and Masks, right?
Yes.
Yes, and you're in all 3 of those.
Yes.
Indeed. What characters in each of them, just to remind people who might not recognize your dulcet tones?
Yes. Well, I play Timothy Tilkey, or Tim, in Hereticus. And I play Mardi in A Song of Tara. Previously, I played Shiva. And then I play White Sparrow in Masks.
All right. And then we get to the meat and potatoes of these things. How long have you been role-playing?
For a while. I think I'm actually coming up on 10 years soon. If you count all the forum-based roleplay I did before I started pen and paper roleplay.
I think that counts. The point is, you know, if you have been engaging in some form of creative outlet that is recognizable as role-playing, as, you know, creating a character for yourself and acting that character out. I would say that even if it's not what most people would consider role-playing, based on the fact that there aren't really, you know, rules for weird-looking dice, the essence of role-playing is still there. So we can at least say quasi-role-playing, I suppose.
Yeah, in that case, I started when I started gymnasium, which was around 16, which is why I'm guessing around 10 years.
Yeah.
But it took at least 3 or 4 years before I joined playing roleplay with Daniel and Michelle in Aalborg.
Yeah.
Which was, you know, the dice kind of roleplay.
Yes, the weirdly shaped dice that we all know and love, and which are slowly fading into obscurity because of computerized dice rolling.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it?
So, how did you get into the hobby? You mentioned Michelle and Daniel.
Yeah, I actually met Michelle and Daniel through my forum-based roleplay. which I got into through one of my friends in gymnasium.
Yep.
And then we, so at the forum, I was a bit of, I wouldn't say troll, but I was not popular with the higher up because I was an annoying little shit for a teenager. And then when I moved to Aalborg, I told one of my friends that I wanted to join some actual role-playing, also as Echo.
Okay. Well.
And she suggested to Daniel and Michelle, hey, this guy that you know from the forum wants to join. And they were like, oh god, that guy? But it turned out fine. Turned out I'm much nicer in real life.
Well, yeah, much nicer in real life than this weird, obnoxious little cretin that you so often have described yourself as. Yes, it's. I wouldn't call you an internet troll. I mean, might have gone for in your case at least for as an internet fairy.
I'll take that.
Yeah, I figured. All right. I actually skipped a fairly important question, but if it ties in rather nicely here, since you've mentioned Michelle and Daniel already, and seeing as Michelle is the artist behind the banner on CharismaToAC, you are obviously represented on that banner, and could you just briefly give us, your thoughts on your depiction there? And for the listener, incidentally, Rasmus is the character on the banner represented second from the right, so he's the one who's standing there with a pen and a big smile on his face and some papers under one arm.
Yeah, that's me, and it shows quite clearly where I started, because I have been quite the alcoholic. I assume those papers are all character sheets.
Yeah. When I got to know you, at least, that was very true. I distinctly remember the first few times we played, and you had to create a character, and over the course of a single... The sound died. Now?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Okay, my sound apparently died. It happens from time to time. I apologize. All right, I'll just rewind a little bit and say that when you started out, or when I started role-playing with you as well, what I remember quite distinctly in that situation was that you would have days in the running up to a new group starting. You would have days where you would get up in the morning and say, oh, I have this incredible idea for a character. And then around noon, you would have almost forgotten that character and passed through 3 others that you were absolutely madly in love with and you really, really wanted to play, and you had even done some line art for the drawing for at least 1, maybe even 2 of them. By the time you reached tea time in the afternoon, you couldn't remember what the one you were actually drawing was going to be called, let alone what class they were going to have, because you had moved on to 5 or 6 new alts, and in the evening you felt despair because you couldn't figure out what to play at all.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, you did learn how to settle on a character a little sooner. That one of the problems I remember you had specifically, and not not to make a joke of that, but actually a genuine problem you had was that when you then ended up with a character, it was often basically a character that you had created, say, within the last 36 hours, 24 hours before the game started, which meant that you did not have much time to work out relations to other characters or psychology for the character as such, and consequently, more than once I saw you end up sitting there feeling like you had a character that was too superfluous compared to the superficial compared to the others. And that, at least, I would say that has certainly changed.
Yeah, I think so too. I actually had a chat with some of the others earlier today about how I now dislike having to make up a character on the fly.
Yeah.
Because I tend to spend a lot of time doing research on my characters.
Yeah. And I think it's not an unusual. I mean, that is actually a relevant point for in general for this not just for this series of videos, but in general for role players. I think that is a very common development that you go from having a million ideas because oh my god, 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 it's such a big world and I can play all these fantastic things, yay, to getting to a point where little by little you go to, yeah, there are all these great ideas, but I'd really, really like to make a big effort on this one.
Yeah.
Quality
over quantity, definitely.
Exactly. But I do think that's a very common path of progression. Anyway, I digress. Let's go back to the questions and say, well, ask whether you have any other hobbies or interests beside role playing that interests you and takes up time.
I do, as has been mentioned by many others. I play video games on my computer.
Yep.
And as you mentioned previously in this interview, I draw digitally, and I've also started painting, although that is mostly a thing I do with my mom, so that's not so often.
Yeah, and for the players who might want to actually sample some of your artwork, do you have? I think you have a DeviantArt page, for example, don't you?
I do, and I'll spell it out because that's easier. So it's rastzar.deviantart.com.
Yes, and of course, a few people may also have seen a couple of your things on such games as Hereticus, where you did the thumbnails and so on that we're using, So yes, that's definitely. Well, admittedly, a lot of the drawing that you're doing is role playing related, but I suppose that makes sense given the circumstances.
I think almost all of it.
Yes. Well, let's move on, and here comes one of the big heavy hitters. What about role playing do you like the best?
That is definitely a heavy hitter.
Yeah.
I know the thing I enjoy the most is when we have emotional scenes, like you and Heine talk about the big emotions.
Yes.
And I'm sitting over here playing it out, and my heart is pounding, and my hands are shaking, and I'm so involved in it, and I love it.
Yes, yes, that feeling of immersion and literally allowing yourself to just for a few minutes at a time, but just to blur the line between where does the fictional character I have created start and end, and where do I, the person, the real person, start and end, is an incredible drug. It's listen up, kids out there, it's a lot healthier than heroin, and it's a lot more fun.
Speaking of healthy, another thing I like is that role-playing can be quite therapeutic, I think.
Yes, it has. It is, and it has. I mean, you are studying to be a teacher, I suppose, as part of the psychology courses. I'm pretty sure that you would have to agree with me that the use of role playing, or at least role playing esque ideas and systems and methods can be therapeutic and helpful to people who are experiencing difficulties of one form or another.
Yeah, myself, I've been very bad with any kind of conflict, and I feel role-playing has contributed hugely to my ability to now handle conflict.
Yeah, you don't run away from it anymore. Not to the. I mean, you don't like it, but then again, few rational people like conflict. True. The point is that you're not fleeing from it the second something is coming up. You will actually, defend a point of view, which is a fairly significant difference from even when I got to know you. So, seeing as that is your favorite kind of role-playing, or what you like most about role-playing, I would also imagine that you favor role-playing systems that allow that sort of thing to happen often, but what would you say is your favorite role-playing system?
Well, the thing is, I feel like this kind of roleplay can happen in all systems.
That's a good point.
Pathfinder is definitely the one I know the best, but that's that's the system that took my role-playing virginity.
Oh, the mental images, but yes, all right.
But I think I'll have to go with World of Darkness.
All right. That's because I mean, the reason why I sound surprised is that I would have actually imagined that you would have said that the Pathfinder is your favorite, mostly because that's the one that. But as you said, it's the one you know the best. But that's not necessarily the same thing as liking it the best overall, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, I definitely like Pathfinder. It's right up my alley with the theme. It's high fantasy. It's magic. I just love it. But I feel at least the way we do World of Darkness is very character-driven.
You fell out at the end there.
I really like it.
I love it. Yes. We indeed. So now that we've established that kind of thing is, since you like character-driven RP and you like the big emotions as we call them and so on. What are your pet peeves? Because I would imagine that they are related to that in some way or other.
Most of my pet peeves are related to my own performance. So if I feel like I can't portray this emotion correctly, or I can't portray something in the way I'd like, that's definitely something that bothers me.
All right.
Outside of that, I have a pet peeve with rules that I don't feel makes sense. Like, if a rule says you can only do this in a certain way, but if you think about it for a second, your common sense would tell you, no, there are 10 ways to do this in real life.
All right. Well, that's obvious. I mean, that's actually quite fun because, well, fun. I hope you know what I mean. The point is that you are basically turning your pet peeves inwards, whereas most other people would turn them outwards. That's an interesting take on it, and certainly should go to show the listener, or the listeners to this. I hope we have more than one. That yes, it is entirely possible to be self-critical and maintain that as your focus, as long as you don't go overboard. But I don't think you do, at least not anymore.
No, I mean, in general, I'm quite an introspective person.
Yes, I would agree. And I think your characters as well sort of reflect that quite often, with the exception of Madi. But Madi is just an airhead.
I actually also played Shiva deliberately, stupid when it came to her own feelings.
Yes.
She was very quick to blame anything outside of herself.
Yes, very much so. It was never her fault. It was always someone else. Slight trait of psychopathy there, maybe. Cough, cough. Anyway, on to the next one. Which of your current characters is your favorite? Which of the ones that you play at the moment? And obviously there are characters that you play in groups that are not actually recorded, but and they would count as well, but then we probably need a little bit of explanation.
Well, I have two options, and they're both being recorded, so that's easier. One would be Madi, because he's just fun to play, and I feel like with him I can, for the most part, turn off my brain. I don't have to question everything I do. I just have to go with it.
It's very instinct driven, which I suppose is not a bad thing when you're thinking wolf.
No, it's definitely not. The other one would be White Sparrow, and that's because I just love tragedy. I love it.
Yes, tragedy is awesome. Yes, more for that, ladies and gentlemen. This is a service announcement. More on my take on tragedy when it's my turn to get an interview at some point.
I definitely, I really like great emotional tragedy, like...
Yes, oh god, yes.
Like, you know, what's it called? Unrequited love, or just people struggling and having no hope. I just,
Oh,
people having a slight inch of hope and then it's just quashed.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. You're speaking my language right now. Yes, exactly. I feel all a flutter.
So those two for very different
reasons. Yeah, that's and I think that's a valid point, is that they represent such different kinds of characters that it would be impossible to really. I mean, you might as well be comparing apples and WD-40. I mean, no. Anyway, yeah, the who would be your all-time favorite character and why? I mean, not necessarily. It could be someone you're playing now, but it could also be someone that's in the past.
That's a good question. I want to say Skjordi. That's the character I've played for the longest, without a doubt. But she was also one of my first characters, which meant she didn't have that much personality.
Exactly. I mean, you've described her as a doormat in the past.
She definitely was. I think with Sulima, my stupid good paladin. She was not very bright, but she definitely had her heart in the right place.
Absolutely, and I like the description that she was stupid good. Yes.
She wasn't lawful stupid. She was stupid good.
Yes, indeed. And she was intensely likable despite being. I'm struggling to find a fitting term here, but she was a little bit slow on the uptake, I think, is the nicest way of putting it. But she certainly had her heart in the right place.
And she was very, in the same vein that Marty is, she was very easy to play, because all I had to go say to myself was, well, what is the right thing to do? I don't have to think about ethics or anything, just my first opinion was the right thing to do, and just go for it and never back down.
Yes. Which fit her religion, incidentally, for the
listeners
here. She was a paladin of Sarenrae, who is, of course, of a religion in Pathfinder, which dictates or preaches that everyone has a chance, or has a right to a second chance. A second chance, not a third or a fourth or a fifth, and she lived by that pretty much, didn't she?
Yeah, second chance. After that, it's holy fire.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Have you tried, or are there any types of characters that you're more likely to play than others, or both in terms of roles and personality?
Yes, there definitely is. I have a tendency towards playing healers. And that actually also goes for the video games I play. If I can, I will play a healer or at least a supportive character in games. Sometimes I mix it up because I don't want to always play the same, but for the most part. I also like playing diplomats, and I think that's in a large part because I am very diplomatic myself.
Yep.
And I tend to play against type, or what you call it. If there's a certain type of character that's more likely, let's say Athena, I tend to play someone who's very emphatically not like your standard Athena.
Yeah, that's true. You do like to. I suppose that's your slight edge of anarchy there. That you like to not. You're non-conformist in that regard. I mean, obviously. There can be some fun in playing someone who actually toes the party line, so to say, but and I can certainly see why that is both fulfilling and fun, but it can also be limiting in the same way. Playing someone who's specifically an iconoclast and breaking the mold and doing all things differently and so on can also be limiting, because like you found out with Shiva, it meant that her support structure basically crumbled all around her basically from day one, because, well, you know, if you don't want to play ball, that's fine, but don't expect the rest of us to play ball with you either.
Exactly, and I only realized that this was a trend for me when I read through the questions, actually.
Yeah. But that's fun. Yeah, it is actually. It means a good way of learning something new about yourself. So, is there any kind of role-playing that you have yet to try, but which you would like to try?
I don't think I've actually played any big romance yet. We did have this love triangle with Shiva and Connell and Aaron, but that was very much angsty.
That was extremely angsty and made up of two people who are now dead and one who's an outlaw.
And I have another character on our Curse of the Crimson Throne campaign who is in a relationship with another, but we haven't played that out so much yet.
Might be something to actually, I would say, experiment with, or I mean, provided you're both comfy with it.
Yeah, that's of course always.
That's always going to, obviously, but it's yeah, that's.
Aside from that, I don't think I've ever played a particularly aggressive character, because that's very far from myself.
I would say that I would probably find that hard to even imagine. In your case, playing someone who is out and out aggressive, it's like, yeah, who are you, and what did you do with Rasmus, and when did the invasion of the Body Snatchers begin? That kind of feeling, really. So, okay, that's pretty much it. Just a few more questions. Do you have any advice, RP-related advice, that you would like to share?
Yeah, I actually, I was looking into how to best make an evil character when I saw that for evil characters, you can't be reactionary. You have to have a goal, because you can't just say, oh, something's wrong, let's return it to status quo. And I actually find that having an overarching goal helps a lot when making a character. Have the motivations down. That helps you know how they'll react in almost any instance.
Yeah. I think that's excellent advice, in fact, for any role player. I don't care how long you've played for. Obviously, it's also with the caveat that goals and personal opinions and so on can change as a result of the role playing. But
of course.
I mean, these are. We try to approximate these as real people, and most real people are capable of changing their opinion along the way. So. Yeah. Next, do you have GM experience? And if you haven't, would you like to?
I have not. I've toyed with the idea multiple times, but I always end up getting away from it, and I think part of it is because I want to tell a story. I don't necessarily want to give some of the control to any players.
Ah, yeah. And of course, that is always going to happen, because the players really create the majority of this. You can create a framework, but they will create the story within that framework.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, on the downward slope here, last question is basically if you have anything else about yourself that you would like to share.
I don't actually think so, other than I really like role playing, and I would suggest anyone ever gives it a try.
Yes. Fair enough. That's good advice as well. Well, in that case, we will round this one off here, and there will obviously be other episodes of this. They should in fact all be uploaded at pretty much the same time, so go and listen to the others as well if you haven't already, and leave a comment if you feel like it. Let people know what you think of their take on role-playing, or yeah, anything at all. Just be nice about it, as I always say, and we will see you guys around for other recordings of the series, and indeed for other content here on CharismaToAC. So stay tuned and take care. Bye.